Alex, I've spent 30 years playing with sharp edges and heavy machinery, but nothing makes my neck hair stand up quite like that specific pop you hear when a capacitor decides it's done with its temporal plane.
Is that the sound of you making a mistake, or the sound of the house telling you to call a professional? Because honestly, Tiger, watching you reach for a junction box is like watching a suspense movie where I know the ending is just a blown fuse and you cursing in the dark.
It's a healthy respect, that's all. Wood gives you a warning creak. Metal gets hot before it fails. But electricity? That's just invisible lightning living in your walls, waiting for you to forget which wire is hot, so it can remind you that you're mostly made of salty water.
Exactly, which is why we're doing this. Today on the Tiger Den, we're peeling back the drywall on home electrical. We're talking safety. The Holy Scripture known as the NEC and why it works isn't the same thing as it's right.
It really starts at the street. Most people think electricity just appears, but it's this massive journey. It's born in a power plant, gets boosted up to 500,000 volts, which is enough to make your teeth ache just thinking about it, and then it gets stepped down through transformers until it hits your service mast.
And that's where the DIY bravery usually starts, between the meter box and the service panel. I've seen your panel, Tiger. It looks like a Technicolor spaghetti monster moved in and started a family.
Hey now, that's legacy character. But you're right. The service panel is the command center. Think of it like a train station. If too many trains try to leave on the same track, the circuit breaker is the conductor who dives under the wheels to stop a collision. It's there to make sure your wires don't turn into heating elements.
So, for the folks listening who aren't sure, what's the actual difference between a fuse and a breaker? Besides the fact that I can never find the right fuse in the junk drawer at 2 a.m.?
It's basically classic versus modern. A fuse is a sacrificial lamb. It has a little piece of metal that literally melts when the current gets too high. Once it's gone, it's a paperweight. A breaker is a mechanical switch. It trips, you find the problem, you flip it back. But the job is the same. Stop the flow before the insulation on your wires starts smelling like a burnt marshmallow.
Okay, let's talk the language of the walls. You always say you can tell a person's soul by how they wire an outlet.
It's true, there's a color code for a reason. In the US, your hot wires, the ones carrying the actual punch, are usually black, red, or blue. Your neutral is white or gray. And the ground? That's your safety net, usually green or just bare copper.
I've seen some older houses where everything is just mystery brown.
That's when you back away slowly and get a multimeter. I remember opening a box in a 1940s farmhouse once. Someone had used lamp cord to jump a circuit, and they'd wrapped the connections in what looked like medical tape from the Korean War. I didn't even touch it. I just shut the main breaker and sat on the floor for a minute to contemplate my life choices.
See, this is why people are scared to DIY electrical. You have these near-death stories. But the NEC, the National Electrical Code, that's supposed to be the map through the minefield, right?
Exactly. It's published by the NFPA, and it's basically a collection of every mistake someone else already made, so you don't have to repeat them. When the code says you need a GFCI, that's a ground fault circuit interrupter, near a sink, it's because someone once dropped a toaster while washing dishes.
GFCIs are those outlets with the test and reset buttons that always pop when I plug in my hairdryer, right?
That's the ones. They're incredibly sensitive. They monitor the current going out and coming back. If there's a tiny leak, like say through your arm into a puddle of water, it kills the power in a fraction of a second. It's the difference between a zip and a goodbye.
And then there's AFC. I hear people get those confused.
Arc fault circuit interrupters. Different beast. While the GFCI protects people from shocks, the AFCI protects the house from fires. It looks for that specific electrical signature of a spark, maybe a nail went through a wire, or a cord is frayed behind the sofa. It senses that shh pop of an arc and shuts things down before the 2x4s catch fire.
You mentioned professional excellence versus code compliance. You're pretty big on going above the bare minimum.
Code is the floor, not the ceiling. If you're wiring a shop or a kitchen, wire it for the life you want to live 5 years from now. I always tell people, leave extra space in the breaker box. Throw in a sub-panel in the garage, even if you only have a drill press right now. Because one day, you're going to buy a granddaddy of a table saw or an electric vehicle, and you don't want to be ripping out drywall again.
And the labeling? Tiger, tell them about your labeling obsession.
Look, there's no greater hell than standing in a dark basement holding a flashlight in your teeth, flipping 30 different breakers while your spouse yells, "Still on," from the kitchen. I don't just write kitchen on the panel. I want to know kitchen, west wall outlets and fridge. It takes 5 extra minutes with a Sharpie and saves you an hour of frustration later.
I actually saw a panel once where someone had labeled a circuit the ghost. I assume that was where the shorts were.
Or where the previous owner gave up. That's the thing. Electrical work is about being meticulous. It's about making sure your grounding is solid. If that path to the earth isn't clear, that extra electricity is going to find a shortcut, and you really don't want to be part of that shortcut.
So, for the person listening who wants to swap a light fixture or move an outlet, where's the line? When do we hang up the tool belt and call the person with the license and the van?
If you're staring at a mess of wires and you start thinking, I'll just try this and see if it works, that's your signal to stop. Electrical work isn't a guess and check hobby. If you don't understand the load requirements, like how many outlets can actually live on a 15 amp circuit, or if you're looking at the main lugs in the service panel, call an electrician. Those lugs are always live, Alex. Even if you turn off the main breaker, they will still bite with the full force of the grid.
That's a sobering thought. I think I'll stick to changing light bulbs and maybe a dimmer switch if I'm feeling spicy.
Dimmers are a gateway drug to full-on home automation. But honestly, the best tool you can own isn't a screwdriver. It's a good reference book. Ugly's Electrical References is the industry Bible for a reason. It's small, it fits in a pocket, and it has all the math you forgot from high school.
So, the takeaway for today? Don't be the ghost in your own circuit?
Exactly. Respect the invisible. Label everything like you're trying to explain it to a stranger in the dark. And remember, the goal isn't just to get the lights to turn on, it's to make sure they stay on safely while you're asleep.
Well said. Next time, maybe we can talk about why Tiger keeps a fire extinguisher labeled in case of Tiger.
We don't talk about the Great Toaster Incident of 1998, Alex. That's off the record.
Thanks for joining us in the den. Stay safe out there and keep making.
And keep your wires tight. See you next time.